again, you hear this? No squeaks or rattles in here. This thing is really, really tight. Oh boy. Okay, all right, now we're getting into some broken up stuff. Hey everybody, it's Charlie from Daily Motor, and I'm just wrapping up the week with this 2023 Jeep Compass. It's got a new engine for this year, and it costs $42,000. Now, I was gonna shoot kind of a going out and running errands sort of review video, but then yesterday while I was shooting the Winding Road drive, I needed to do some off-roading with it, and I thought, you know what? Realistically speaking, if people are buying a Jeep, they should be taking it off-road, right? I mean, this thing, it's got all-wheel drive. It should be decently capable. We've got, you know, some bit of ground clearance here, even though there's some sort of aero spoiler under there that you can see I got decently dirty and scraped up. But most of this driving video after this portion is going to be doing the off-road and kind of talking about the Compass as that sort of vehicle, especially because we just got out of the RAV4 Woodland Edition last week, and then I've actually got a CR-V hybrid right now. It just showed up today. So I'm definitely rocking through the compact crossovers right now, which is fine because that's what everybody's buying anyway. So let's talk a little bit about the Compass, why you might choose it, and then we'll head out on the drive here. So like I said, new engine. That was one of the biggest complaints about the Compass in previous years is it had a naturally aspirated motor that was slow and loud. Those were the two biggest complaints, was people didn't like how slow it was and people didn't like how loud it was. In fact, Chris Brower, Topher drives him. His girlfriend Emily had a Jeep Compass for about 2.5 years, and that was her biggest complaint, was the noise and the lack of oomph from the engine. This one fixes those two things. I still don't love it. It still has a jerkiness and an inconsistency, and the throttle is too aggressive, so it's yanking you around everywhere. But, I mean, on the plus side, it is pretty darn quick and much quieter than the outgoing car. So you'll see that here in a minute. This one, as spec'd, like I said, about $42,000. It starts closer to $32,000, but this one has a few packages on it. We'll take a look at the build sheet window sticker here in a minute. We've got the two-tone paint, so black up top, and then this silverish grayish down here. You can see, despite taking it on some decently gnarly off-road trail, it stayed pretty clean. So whatever they're doing is keeping the paint pretty darn clean there. Interesting though, no all-terrain tires. These are Pro Contact TX Continentals, just all seasons. And at first I thought they were totally fine off-road, but after filming, I had to do some aggressive stops and it slid quite a bit. So it's a reminder that if you are going to be doing a lot of dirt road, a lot of bad driving conditions or something like that, invest in some pretty grippy, all-terrainy sort of tires for insurance, if you will. One of the features is being able to kick the tailgate open. You can see no touch, and up we are. The Compass is technically a compact crossover, so it does compete with the CR-V and the RAV4 and the Ford Escape, and honestly the Jeep Cherokee as well, but it's a bit smaller than those. So it's not quite as small as something like a CX-30 or a Corolla Cross or a Jeep, what do they still make, the Renegade, but it's not quite as large either as some of those. And you do have a decent lift-over height and a little bit of a lip, so if you're someone shorter lifting things in here, you're going to want to keep that in mind. Seats do fold fairly easily, and you don't have to adjust the driver's seat much to get it to come down. Not a totally flat load surface, but enough to expand the usability. And you will see right here a big old subwoofer in this optional Alpine sound system. I've done a review on the 22 model, and then I reviewed this one as well. They're both honestly pretty darn good. Up there near the top of the class, probably not quite Mazda CX-5 Bose, but if you're a bass head, then you're gonna appreciate this one. I also did an infotainment review and a little bit of a fuel test as well, where this did decently. So feel free to check all those, link in the description. Let's close this tailgate again with our foot. You can see how long it takes to close here. Not the fastest lift gate in the world, but I guess not the end of the world. Capless fuel filler, so that's pretty nice. I like having that. Let's take a look on the inside. Oh, black badges. That's another thing that somebody paid for with this car. Jeep, I suppose. Here we are in the back seat. The door opens pretty wide, so you're gonna want that if you're putting car seats in here. I wouldn't recommend having more than 2 children for a long period of time in this car, just because it's not necessarily the kids that are going to not fit, it's all their stuff that goes in the back. So once you pack in diaper bags and strollers and the 2 rear-facing car seats, you're gonna have a bit of a tough time. Optional all-weather floor mats, that's what those are gonna look like, little hexagons. It's got a bit of a cloth inlay, but then this leather around it. The materials are pretty good. Jeep does a decent job at making their interiors feel nice. 5'10", I've got headroom, but just barely if I'm sitting perfectly upright. And then also this panoramic sunroof, letting in the rays. Good amount of knee room for me, 5'10". Also important for a lot of people, vents back here, as well as USB-A and USB-C and a 12-volt way down there. I believe the USB ports are optional though. I'll have to confirm that. Flip down armrest with mildly grippy cup holders. Here's your view of the front. This has the black interior with some optional piano black. I don't understand why anyone would pay more for piano black. It looks great for all of about 2 months, and then it's going to be covered in skin bits and hairs and scratches. No proxy key in the rear, but proxy key, I believe, actually wait, I better confirm. Yeah, no proxy key in the rear, but I think if you come around, you get it on both front doors, so you can at least walk up, unlock it like that, be able to pop the door open. The Compass was refreshed for 2022 to look better on the outside and inside, and the one we had last year had orange on the inside. It looked awesome. This one's a bit more boring in this black, but some people like the more mature, understated look. Some cross-stitching. There are your all-weather floor mats. Again, power seats, thanks to the options. Leather-wrapped steering wheel. I talked about it a bit when it came to the end of the review that I already shot, but is coming up here later on in this video, about not liking the ergonomics much in this car, and that's honestly been one of the toughest things for me. It's a mixture. It's 3 things. It's the ergonomics, the driving experience, and the price. Those are the 3 things that kill this car for me. When you're doing things like reaching up for the turn signal stalk here, or even reaching back for these controls on the back side of the steering wheel, it's not ergonomic. It's you have to reach far and out of the way. It's not really an extension of your body, if you will. The rest of the interior, though, is laid out decently well. This touchscreen is pretty fantastic. Let me turn that on for us here. Uconnect screen. All of the Compasses get this 10-inch screen. I think that's really smart on them to have that standard. And you've got some redundant physical controls for climate. I think that's good as well. Big old shifter, easy to use, fairly competent cup holders. Also, overall a decent amount of places to put things, although you've got your wireless device charging in there and put a phone, and that pretty much takes up that whole area. So then you're stuck with this little center console area that does slide forward, and a glove box. Wireless CarPlay and Android Auto, definitely like having that. Let's take a look at this window sticker here. Hopefully y'all can see it. Here we are, we've got the Altitude trim, or Altitude, I suppose would be the best way to pronounce that. Our 200 horsepower and 221 pound-feet of torque, 18-inch wheels, 24 city, 32 highway on the fuel economy. Like I said, your base price right there is $32,295, but once you toss in a $1,600 destination fee, which that might as well just be in the price. You can't avoid paying that. You're looking at almost $43,000 for this car. Pay $500 for the paint. This Altitude package I would skip. This gloss black badges, two-tone paint, the 18-inch black wheels, and the piano black interior bits. Don't need that. However, I do think the other 2 packages are nice to have. Driver assistance giving you the front and rear parking assist, so that's actually beeping at you if you're coming up to crash into something. The 360 camera which works really well also. Let me bring that up. Yeah, it's nice being able to see around you, pulling into garages, parking spots, things like that. So I would pay for that package, especially because it also gets you the adaptive cruise control and wireless device charging. And then the convenience group. This is kind of a must-have as well, I think, at this price point. Garage door openers, dual zone climate control, heated seats and steering wheel, remote start, power adjusted seats. I would skip the sun and sound probably though, because I don't really use the panoramic sunroof too often, and the Alpine audio, I mean, it is good, but I don't know. I feel like I gotta find ways to cut costs with this car because it's a lot. It really is, and the competition is just not that much. It's not more expensive. It's cheaper. It really is. So I know Jeep's going to be able to give you deals on this, but you really got to be able to cross shop. But either way, let's get out on the road, and yeah, we'll fast forward to some off-road driving. Talk a little bit about the way this car drives. All right, wasn't even planning on filming for Daily Motor right now, but we need to do a little bit of exploring still in our new neck of the woods for good and accessible off-roady sort of sections, or at least dirt road sort of sections that work well for the winding road video. Fortunately, there are a lot of these little canyon offshoot sort of roads around here, and just pulled off during the winding road video to kind of check one out. I figured I'd bring you all along, especially because if we do hit a little bit of a dirt section, then we can actually talk about this 23 Compass and how it handles it. Last week we had the RAV4 Woodland Edition, and that actually came with some all-terrain tires. I'll have to check what's on this. I don't think they're all-terrains. I think they're just some sort of kind of all-season-y sort of SUV tire. But we'll take a look. Oh, that is a horse, and this is a truck. So this is not a super conducive road so far to doing any sort of useful filming. It's very low speed and very tight and congested. But what we're looking for is up here a little ways. See how that is. It's so cool to just see someone riding a horse. I've been thinking long and hard about this engine, and it is a big step up from the previous engine that was in the Jeep Compass. But I just don't love the tuning of it. I'm all for 2-liter turbos in most standard means of transportation like this. And I like an 8-speed automatic as well. I just don't like how this one runs. And it's even potentially not working properly because I noticed some weird shakiness and jitteriness. I'll drop that footage here now. Just not inspiring. And driving it around daily, I've put over 200 miles on this thing. It doesn't feel like an inspiring engine. I don't enjoy driving it around. Oh, this is like a whole thing. Alright, this is somebody's place. What does this say? There's tons of horse activity. Okay. Protected wildlands. That's kind of cool. Well, won't be filming there anytime soon. So back down the hill we go. Turning radius is pretty good on the Compass. I mean, I would hope so. This, at the end of the day, is not a huge crossover, so it is fairly maneuverable, and as it should be. For someone looking for something with competent all-wheel drive that isn't huge in your garage, it's not a bad package. And I really have enjoyed the technology suite in here. Whoever's been doing infotainment and technology for Stellantis over the last, ever, the last 10 years or so, I guess, they've done a really good job. I've always been happy with the tech suite in these cars. There's a good amount of redundant controls. It's intuitive. The screens are very high resolution compared to their contemporaries. And the fact that you get this system even in the base Compass is pretty darn good. I mean, this is the one without navigation, but since you've got wireless CarPlay and Android Auto, that's really not a huge deal because I've got navigation up right here, no problem, even though my phone is down in the cup holder. And I appreciate the gauge clusters as well. I don't think an analog tachometer and speedometer is really necessary in a car like this, but admittedly, the middle screen works well, shows me information I want to see, and the analog gauges just kind of add to the visual appeal of the car. I'm a big fan of analog tachs when it comes to manual cars or anything that you have to drive aggressively. I like to be able to see the sweeping tach, but in a car like this, I really don't think it matters that much, especially because this thing shifts for itself about 800 revs below redline, typically. Outside of the price, the Compass does a lot well on paper. The power figures are much higher than the previous engine. The fuel economy figures, not too bad. We tested 33 mpg cruising on the highway at 70 miles per hour. That's pretty decent for a decently sized crossover here with all-wheel drive. But I really not enjoyed my time with the car, and I really had to think about it and think about how to tell you all that in this video, because I can't just come on and be like, nah, I don't like the car, and then be done with it, because you all will be like, well, you don't have any reasons to back that up, so why would you even say that? Years ago, my father purchased a Mark V GTI, and one of the first things he said about it that he liked was that everything felt so intuitive. Where the turn signal stalk was, where the shifter was, everything felt right. It felt like an extension of your body, and that is what I appreciate about good driving cars. I think a lot of my journalist contemporaries would agree that a really good driving car comes down to it feeling like an extension of your body. That's why I like motorcycles as well, as it feels like you're one with the machine. This car is the opposite of that. Between the chunkiness and the weird proportions of the steering wheel, the awkward distances from my hand to the end of these stubby stalks on the wheel, there's an unnatural feeling about driving this car, and I can't get myself over it. And then when you couple on top of that the not smooth and linear nature of the powertrain, then you get into this situation where it's like, I don't feel like I'm working with this car. I don't feel like I'm one with it and it's communicating with me. It just feels like I'm on this big tank and I'm telling it what to do, and hopefully that happens at the end of the day. So while it does so much well, while it looks good in here, it's fairly comfortable, and it's got all the features I want, I haven't enjoyed just driving it around. It does little things to both annoy me and not feel like an extension of my body. Okay, what do we have here? Do we have anything that says we're not allowed to drive here? County road vehicle code enforced, emergency stopping only next 3 miles. Okay, here we go. Driving off-road prohibited, stay on road. I can do that. It's hardly a road anyway. What different drive modes do we have? Sand and mud, snow, and auto. Let's leave it in auto for now. If it gets bad, we'll drop into sand and mud, maybe try that out. Realistically, if you're spending the extra coin and sacrificing a little bit of fuel economy to get something all-wheel drive, and even more so to get a Jeep, you really ought to be doing things like this at least somewhat regularly, right? You ought to live somewhere that gets a lot of snow, or you take a lot of dirt roads, back roads, things like that. And one thing I gotta hand it to Jeep about is that I haven't noticed any annoying squeaks or rattles in this cabin. This car has 6,400 journalist miles on it, which means it has been abused. And even going over this rough terrain, it's pretty well put together in here. So I do have to hand it to him. What you are getting when you opt for a vehicle like this is a little bit of extra ground clearance, better approach angles. So if you are doing camping or biking or hiking or anything like that in situations like this fairly regularly, yeah, more pedestrian cars can get you here as well, but this is going to provide you the ability to go over a section like this that you might not be familiar with. And if you're going to hit a big wallop like this, that wasn't even that much, but you're going to be less concerned about scraping your front or bottoming out or anything like that as you drive along. Here's a good example right here. I'm going to just take this. Actually, we've got a little surround view camera. Let's utilize that too. Oh, thinks I'm having a crash. And there we go. I don't even know. I mean, that looks like it's collapsing, doesn't it? I don't know if it's best to try to get my right tire up on there or on my left. I guess I'm going to go with my left. Oof, that's a little quenching right there. Good news, the trail has tightened and we have found an accessible filming spot for off-roady sort of vehicles. Not too far from the house at all, and I have moved the Jeep up into sand and mud mode, which locks the four-wheel drive system and turns the traction control off, interestingly enough. So we are ready for a little bit more serious off-roading. It looks like a bit of a trail, but I don't think I want to go down it. Don't exactly want to trespass, you know what I'm saying? I want to be a courteous new resident here. I don't think we're going to go too super far in here, because I wasn't even planning on doing this today. Like I said, I wasn't even planning on filming, but I wanted to bring you all along for this and see how the Jeep does. I gotta say, between the steering weight and the suspension, ground clearance, this is handling it pretty well. I'd say a little bit better, a little bit more confidently feeling than the RAV4 I had up this way last week. Well, same mountain chain, different trail. That low-end grunt of this 2-liter engine is nice out here. Doesn't really feel like the engine's got to work up or anything to get going up some of these hills. Some of these water crossings make me so nervous. Apparently they make the car nervous too. Oh, look at this. All of a sudden we've got paved road. That makes a lot of sense. Why would they have brought road pavers all the way up this way after having all that section of ridiculous 2-track? It's very interesting to me. Guess we can take it out of mud mode then. And here we are, right back to the 2-track. That's very funny. I'd like to know the backstory on that. Gosh, this is some beautiful area. Let me just pop the window open here. Ooh, dust. That's awesome. Oh, there is a truck coming. Raptor back here. I'm sure they're not doing anything irresponsible. Ooh, okay, alright. There we go, getting into a little bit of that traction control action. Gonna go back up into sand and mud, keep our 4-wheel drive locked. Again, you hear this? No squeaks or rattles in here. This thing is really, really tight. Oh boy. Okay. Alright, now we're getting into some broken up stuff. Oh boy. Okay. Alright, now we're getting into some broken up stuff. Nicely done, little Jeep. Again, having that big front camera is just excellent. What in the world is that? Is this a campground? Oh my gosh, that's awesome. There's little campsites up here. Alright, I'm thinking this is going to be the end of the road for us today. This is a trailhead. Does look like there's a little bit of driving up that way possible, but I think we're going to save that more exploring for another day, another vehicle. We do have the 24 Wrangler coming up here soon, so maybe this is where we're going to have to go. But here's the thing. If you're going to get yourself something like the Jeep Compass, do it because you're going to do Jeep things. Do it because you need a 4-wheel drive lock, and you're going to utilize the extra ground clearance and the sand and mud mode regularly. If you're just going to be getting something to daily drive, you want to cross over because you like sitting up higher and you like being able to put things in the back and have extra people be comfortable, there's better crossovers to do that. I'm going to be totally honest with you. But we were able to come up here with very pedestrian all-season tires, looking at those right now, and the Pro Contact TXs, and we were able to tackle this trail. We've got a little bit of extra clearance and a little robustness in order to do that. So get a Compass for that. Don't get a Compass for just daily driving, because even with this new motor, it's not calibrated super well, and it doesn't feel like an extension of your body when commuting. But I was able to come out here, be confident, and have fun doing this. So thank you all so much for watching. If you do want to see more on the new Compass, check the link in the description. We've got infotainment breakdowns, fuel economy testing, another test on the Alpine audio system, and we'll see you on the next one. I'm Charlie from Daily Motor, and as always, Jeep on.